Welcome back, everybody. Today we're discussing WandaVision Episode 8. This has been by far the most emotional episode to date, revealed exactly who created the Hex, who Agatha Harkness will be in the MCU, and what Hayward has been doing all along. Let's begin with understanding the magic of the MCU and how I think the line at the end relates to all of the magic that we've seen so far. Starting off, we come to Salem 1693 and the MCU origin of Agatha Harkness. We learn that she has been practicing magic above her grade and training level. Now, many things this episode remind me of Doctor Strange, but this, of course, is the first. The idea of using magic above your pay grade was the main theme of Doctor Strange. It was the reason that Caecilius was outed. It was the drama that prevented Strange from jumping right into his full potential. And it was the twist at the end when we learned that the Ancient One was drawing upon magic from the Dark Dimension. This entire episode, including defining the magic that Wanda has been using as chaos magic, feels like Disney's attempt to make sense of magic in the MCU, to create a genuine magic system across all of the MCU and maybe color-code it in the process, to combine Wanda, Agatha, her coven, Thor's mom who is raised by witches, the magic from Doctor Strange, the magic of Wakanda, the god Bast that they worship, and many others. I believe all of this could be the same magic system, and all of them could be doing what is described in Doctor Strange.
We harness energy drawn from other dimensions of the multiverse to cast spells, to conjure shields and weapons, to make magic.
The reason that they revealed that Wanda was always a witch, even before being imbued with the power of the stone, points to her power coming from that other dimension or another being, similar to how Wakanda cites the god Bast as the source of their power. This could point to the comics where her power is coming from someone named Chthon. I think the MCU might be integrating these as well, making Chthon this entity much like Dormammu in Doctor Strange, and just as his power from the Dark Dimension could be called upon, Wanda could be doing the same with Chthon without even knowing it. I think if this is happening and the book that we saw was the Darkhold, we might see Doctor Strange come into the story with something called the Book of the Vishanti, which is the counterpart to the Darkhold and contains all of the protective magic and may have been one of the books that was handed down after the Ancient One died. In that book, we see a group spell called the Group Spell of Dimensional Reversal. This was used to defeat a big bad in the comics, and wouldn't you know it, was performed with the help of Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, and her son, Wiccan, among many other powerful users. I think the importance of the chaos magic line at the end is proving that she draws upon power above her grade, just like Agatha was doing. For that reason, Agatha may come to pity Wanda, or their interests may align, because after everything was revealed, Wanda wasn't acting maliciously, she was just using magic above her grade. At this point, it does seem unlikely that Agatha will be anything other than the big bad, but I do see room for their common interests to align, unless, of course, Agatha just goes full power-hungry monster and is trying to absorb her magic, just like she did to her coven all those years ago. Speaking of which, we see the flashback in which her life was threatened by the coven and her own mother, and instead she absorbs their magic and drains their life away. The purple hue that powers her chokes the life from her mother as she leaves, taking the pin that she wears centuries later. Now, here's the thing. I feel some empathy for Agatha here. They basically forced her hand, crying, pleading for them not to do this as she's taken to the stake, then pleading that she can be good if, they would only teach her. And after all is lost, the mother stands still trying to strike her down. Now, because we know that Agatha is a very manipulative character, it shapes this as her trying to gain sympathy when the reality is that she is rotten to the core. But I'll be the first to admit it worked. I do feel for Agatha here, but who knows if that's justified or not. We then come to the basement where Agatha reveals that she trapped Wanda with runes inscribed into the walls, which made me think of Westview and how the town itself is kind of resembling a rune. Because it's revealed that Wanda made the hex, it's probably not Agatha casting a global spell on Earth, but we do know that that's possible. In Doctor Strange, the three sanctums around the world were the spell that kept Earth from being added to Dormammu's dark dimension. It'll be interesting to see if this is intentional or just a coincidence, but the point of this conversation is ultimately to prove that Wanda is a really ignorant magic user. She wields nukes, but doesn't know what the word wield means. Agatha starts her interrogation hoping to find out who or what Wanda really is. She reveals that Pietro is a crystalline possession, not necromancy, because her real brother is on the opposite side of the world right now, and probably Bones, which either confirms that she pulled Quicksilver from the X-Men reality, or they just cast Evan Peters to mess with us. I really can't see an option outside of that. I hope it's the former and not the latter. Agatha says that she sensed this place because of the afterglow of so many spells and came to investigate, which, being this powerful, feels like something that Strange should be able to sense as well. The reason he may not be here could relate to the line about chaos magic and how it was said to be a myth, but we shall see. I may be reading too much into it or trying to make Jimmy Woo a more important character, but if Jimmy had this same kind of link to the mystic arts, even if he doesn't know it, this may explain why he sensed that something was wrong with the town, so much so that he would turn around and not even enter, which at the time, again, I even pointed it out, felt like something really strange to me. So maybe this is pointing to his perception of this reality, maybe pointing to him having some kind of magic tie. Agatha then goes over mind control and transmutation, which Wanda should not be able to do with her lacking knowledge in the mystic arts. Her monologue shows us that she is frustrated, letting us know that after Salem, she continues her study and becomes far greater than her mother ever believed possible. And along came Wanda, who is able to do things that she can only dream of. Magic on autopilot. We then see her throw the cicada to her pet rabbit and get this book in the background with a Celtic tree on front, which the only character that I know that has a Celtic background is the Ancient One.
No one knows the age of the Sorcerer Supreme. Only that she's Celtic and never talks about her past.
Since we know the Ancient One is centuries old, I have to wonder if Agatha and her ever crossed paths, perhaps even to explain why the Ancient One turned to the Dark Dimension in the first place. Imagine a spin-off with the Ancient One and Agatha. My God, that would be so good. Agatha starts slamming Wanda against the pillars and demanding that she has been trying to open her mind, but says that Wanda would rather fall apart than face her truth. This line has been said 3 times so far, first in the Nexus commercial, then in Monica's confrontation, and now. I think they're letting us know that this is what it's all about, realizing your truth, confronting it, and owning it, to define the things that have happened to you as real, and to take the first step going forward. It's a beautiful thought, your truth, and I'm glad that, Disney is tackling this. I encourage you all to read more about the concept of your truth and how it can apply to philosophy and artificial intelligence topics as well. The perception of reality is a pretty wondrous and terrifying thing. Agatha rips a hair from Wanda's head, which is something that we've seen Doctor Strange do as well, and she uses it to open a door to her past, which is spectacular. I teared up on a few parts of this episode, just Marvel swinging on my heartstrings. As the door opens, we see these 9 circles. Now, if this magic system does integrate all of the magic of this reality, I think what we're seeing here are the 9 realms, which, of course, before it blew up, Asgardians were promised to protect. I believe the top one is Midgard, which is also known as Earth, and the below planets are the other realms that for some reason orbit around Midgard, though it could also just be a cool door. We meet Wanda's parents and learn that they used sitcoms to practice their English with the goal of one day moving to America and out of the war-torn Sokovia that they were trapped in. They also explain that this is why her accent comes and goes, and a very real upbringing that she had being overwritten by this dream of a happy American life. Honestly, this first part is so wholesome. Seeing their family happy together, a semblance of normal life, and the TV night that they would share together, the sitcoms, a beautiful escape from her reality, just as they are now, her father doing everything he could to provide for his family, wanting to be a provider and always falling short. The moment the sad music started playing, I knew that we were going to see the missile hit, and they delivered it in such a shocking way. My God, this entire thing was brilliant. Wanda's favorite episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show is one commonly known as the Walnut episode, where Rob fears a science fiction takeover via alien, and ultimately it becomes a Twilight Zone mockery, where it all comes true before waking up to realize that it wasn't. It's a reflection of what Wanda is doing in Westview, but at the same time, another reference to aliens again. I'm really starting to wonder if Wanda isn't going to wake up at some point and this all be a dream, or perhaps a scroll-induced simulation that let them analyze her thoughts, even from things that you're hiding from yourself, which was a theme of Captain Marvel. The twins, of course, managed to stay alive, and Agatha wonders if this was because of a probability hex. Now, this again has a possible tie to Doctor Strange when Mordo says this.
Tampering with continuum probabilities is forbidden.
But also in relation to her being a Nexus being who can control probability, this concept of Nexus beings may not even be revealed until Doctor Strange 2. I feel like once Strange is declared the Sorcerer Supreme, that may be when when they discuss what a Nexus being is, though it's hard to imagine who would be explaining this concept to them. Perhaps Strange read about this in one of the books, or perhaps the protectors of the multiverse will give them the 411 on why they need to keep their reality in check and not threaten the universal time stream. Getting off track though, we see Wanda and Pietro taking shelter under the bed and the hex that was used to keep them alive. This is confirmed with dialogue from Agatha, who calls her a baby witch, still demanding to know where she got the big guns from. We transition to her time as a young adult, joining a terrorist regime with her brother, believing their lies about changing the world. This scene reveals that countless before her died trying to interact with the stone, and because we know both her and her brother live, now we have to wonder why he was spared as well. Because he could have a similar unique experience that made the stone not kill him, or perhaps it's genetic, and this could be the integration of the X gene appearing in the MCU. The important thing though is that the stone picks her, giving her a vision of what she could be and protecting the record of this event by scrubbing it from the recording. Meaning whatever force that's editing these broadcasts probably isn't even human, it relates to the very core of who she is. I wonder if this doesn't also relate to the probability magic, like whatever force that showed her this vision of the future. I'm not taking this as, something that was guaranteed, but something that Wanda could strive to be, meaning that after she saw it and wanted that future to be hers, her probability magic was the thing that was scrubbing her record, subconsciously protecting her, because without that footage, she was able to do all of these things so far. If that had been recorded and that data had been stolen by Tony when he raided the compound, who knows what would have happened if Tony saw that. I take this moment as proof that one of the gods or dimensions of the multiverse are lending her their powers and protecting her, or it's simply the pinnacle of her probability magic. She saw what she could become, and just like the bomb, she cast a spell or made that silent deal to make it happen without knowing the true cost. On the surface, it appears to help her by scrubbing the footage, by protecting her secret, by making her more powerful and able to do something with her life. Also, she could get to this point without knowing the true pain and suffering that it would truly take to be this powerful person, to become the Scarlet Witch. That could even be the reason that Pietro survives, not because he too was special, but because he needed to die later for her to develop further. Agatha then explains that the picture is coming together, but she needs more, taking us to the Avengers compound, which she considers the first home that she ever shared with Vision. During the sequence, we get this interaction.
It is funny because of the grievous injury the man just suffered.
No, he's not really injured.
How can you be certain?
It's not that kind of show.
Now here's the thing, WandaVision isn't that kind of show. Wanda isn't putting together her home for it all to come crashing down and for her wounds to be grievous. But where the episode ends, Wanda is the bad guy. She is ultimately the one that started this event. She created the hex, she enslaved thousands of men, women, and children, and unless something changes, this will be the kind of show that makes her the villain, which I just refuse to believe. In Civil War, they convinced us that we should like Bucky because it wasn't his fault that he was brainwashed to do these things. In Hulk's story, he rampaged and killed thousands when he wasn't in control. I don't think we can have another Avenger that we consider good while overlooking all of their bad deeds simply because they lost control of their powers. But as the story stands, Wanda lost control of those powers because of her emotions, and despite all the grief that she now feels and has gone through, she still does not have the right to enslave these people and call herself the good guy because she didn't mean to. This is one of the biggest reasons that I'm still hoping for a final twist with Hayward, one final link that connects his actions to the events that triggered this to get accountability off of Wanda and onto Hayward. If she was perhaps the bomb that was purposely set off, that shifts blame and means that we can still consider Wanda one of the good ones, but we'll talk more about that later. Like Wanda, I don't think this is a show where our hero gets crushed by their building and her life thrown away because she didn't secure the crossbeams well enough. One side note, I think if what I said about the probability magic is true and the vision of her was, what she wished upon, that could be the thing that gets accountability off of Wanda by putting it on the god or dimension that granted her this wish. That would mean that they ultimately knew how to make her become the Scarlet Witch and all of the pain and suffering that people would have to endure, meaning that it ultimately wasn't her fault. Well, it wasn't mostly her fault. This scene also shows that Wanda doesn't know how to deal with grief. She lost her brother and lashes out at Vision, unable to see a light at the end of that very dark road. Vision comforts her and delivers this amazing line.
But what is grief? If not love, persevering.
Holy moly, I was no good. What a line, what a genius, incredibly powerful and simple line. I will live the rest of my life in shame for not writing this myself. I mean, my God, what a beautiful thought. Vision only delivers the best. He has the most impactful quotes across the entire MCU, second maybe only to Groot. But here's the thing, that was my first reaction, and I think a justified reaction. But as I sit and contemplate the implications of that line, I can actually see this as something specifically problematic to Wanda, who is emotionally compromised. She could be unable or unwilling to let go of that grief because she associates that pain to love. She doesn't know how to understand her truth because she fears that if she moves on, it will be like not loving those people that cared about her. I think if Vision understands this in the present, and there is another line like this coming up, that he might deliver another quote about letting go, or how not constantly feeling that grief is okay. It's okay to not constantly feel grief and love those people that are now departed. So let her know that love does not just persevere with grief, but by living for those people that loved you, acknowledging that you don't have to live the rest of your life in this sunken place. It's okay to let go because, like he says here,
because it can't all be sorrow, can it?
Then we come to S.W.O.R.D. headquarters, and it's sadly not explained how S.W.O.R.D. came to be in possession of Vision's body, but she expresses that Vision deserves a funeral just like Tony had. Now, this dynamic is wonderfully tragic. Tony Stark is credited for saving the world, rightfully so, and his image is plastered everywhere, but Vision died before the battle, and people don't view him as being his own being, but an extension of Tony's creations. She may be one of the only people that don't view him as an object, which was something that was important to Vision. The world views Wanda as someone to be feared because of what happened in Lagos, and they viewed Vision as property because of how he came into the world. She opens the door herself, and this was the first hint that something might not be right with our understanding of these events. Hayward uses the term the Vision once again and throughout this dialogue because he simply views Vision as an object, as a weapon. Hayward shows Wanda the body, which they've had for years now, so again, why now? Why would they cut him open right in front of her like they haven't tried this, many times before? The fact that Hayward lies about these events and the reveal at the end, I think that he was trying to agitate her. He wanted this conflict, this reaction to make her lose her mind and lash out. They have failed to reanimate Vision for years and knew that her powers might be able to help. He lied to the team in order to conceal his plot and made it appear as though Wanda lost her cool and took Vision's body by force. He brings up this idea that she could reanimate him herself, citing some hidden knowledge that she could bring him back online, which shocks even her. This felt really strange to me, and I guess the Accords could have mandated the information be shared with them, but it could also be hinting at a deeper plot still, and part of the reason why I still have hope that not all of the blame might be on Wanda. When she finally touches his remains, she stops, realizing that he is no longer the same person. She can no longer feel what she once did. She quietly leaves, gets in her car, and sees the letter from Vision. This was another moment where I felt so deeply for Wanda. Vision wanted a life for them, away from everything inside of normality, hidden from the rest of the world that would know their names and fear or consider them as anything other than a loving American couple. This is what she wanted. This is what Vision wanted, and they never got that time together. The town is run down, firstly because it's New Jersey, and second because it's still a short time after the blip returned everybody. Life is still trying to get back to normal and pick up the pieces after this radical shift. She arrives at 2800, the plot that Vision bought, and we see that even the deed to his house had Vision labeled as the Vision. Now, I think this is just meant to be a touching moment where we see that Vision was considering her feelings and what they wanted for the future, but this heart is signed V. The first episode was all about this heart on the wall, and Wanda even brings up that they would never need to abbreviate anything, which makes me think it's possible that this was a part of the setup by Hayward. I know it's probably not. I know this is probably just a heartfelt moment, but the devil is in the details. She ultimately breaks and lets out the chaos magic that starts all of this. She enslaves the town, transmuting matter and subconsciously casting mental mind control spells to create something that is comfortable to her. Sitcoms. We see her create Vision, which is interesting because we know that they were tracking the vibranium of Vision inside of the Hex, so I wonder if it's saying that she created all new vibranium as well, which would be amazing. The show lights appear and Agatha slow claps from the audience. Wanda runs into the street and we see Agatha choking the twins in the middle of the road and defining her as the Scarlet Witch. Now, Wanda immediately starts using magic again, hinting that she's back in the real world, but I genuinely don't know why Agatha would release her from the basement, or, if this is not already another trap, she plainly acknowledges that Wanda is this nuclear bomb while facing off against her in the middle of the road. I don't know, it just feels weird. This title also feels like it could relate to her mother. Before she died, she manifested a crown, possibly pointing to her being the witch or the lead witch of this blue magic. I feel like the Scarlet Witch is just a name for that pinnacle user of this red magic or this chaos magic, showing again how powerful Agatha was back then and the strength of this purple magic to defeat the crowned witch of this magic form, if that is what they're implying. The very last scene shows Hayward creating White Vision. This was a member of the West Coast Avengers saga. He was rebuilt just as he was here, and when he came back, he was cold and nothing like the Vision that she knew and loved. Now, I was so happy to see this. This means that the Ultron 2.0 theory was correct, with the exception of Hayward's progress, and of course the key to making him work being Wanda's magic, which they get from the drone. I have some seriously high hopes that the voice of White Vision won't be Paul Bettany, but James Spader, the Lizard King, and original Ultron voice. The gem on his forehead is probably also an arc reactor, meaning that this is more of Stark technology that is being used for things that he probably wouldn't approve of. I truly hope at the end of this we can assign most of the blame to Hayward, because while this will most certainly be a monumental progression for Wanda's mental state, I can't imagine how she's going to feel after coming to terms with enslaving all of these people, unless it is really Hayward doing this, or the magic behind the stone seemingly saving Wanda while also setting into motion the tragic events that make her become the Scarlet Witch. But with that, we come to the end of the video. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as I will be covering the finale and moving over to Falcon and the Winter Soldier series in the coming weeks. I also want to do a video on Kong and why Kong is going to destroy Godzilla, but more on that later on. I will be breaking down every episode for Marvel going into the future, and if you're interested in supporting this channel, consider sharing it with your friends or signing up over on Patreon like our top donor, Michael Linck. Much love, everybody, and I cannot wait to talk to you all again soon.